Awesome. All right, guys, this is our group project here, Fahrenheit 451. We're comparing the novel and the film from 1966. This is me, Everett Clark, also Chris Cuevas and Paige Grover. Get right into it here. So we'll start off by talking about the novel, the main themes of the book. So basically, Ray Bradbury, the author, he created this dystopian world that was government oppression, book banning, book burning, and it's sort of a richly detailed society. And it's a pretty good commentary on a lot of different things that we'll get into, a good critique. But he populated the world with all these different characters who sort of represent different archetypes of people who would populate a world like this. So of course you have Montag, the main character, the protagonist. He's begins as sort of a naive individual who starts having questions. He starts wondering how he should live life and how he could be happier. He kind of realizes that he's not happy, and he starts finding what it is about books that people are so drawn to. His wife, Millie, she represents sort of the blinded group of people, the people who just do whatever society tells them they should do. And she gets really invested in everything. And she's sort of perpetuating the oppressive system that everybody lives in, but she's not really trying to. She doesn't have any bad motivations. She's just kind of following. And so Bradbury kind of critiques that type of person with Millie. And Beatty, he's more of the active antagonist. He's the one who goes out and burns books, who wants to keep this system going. And so he has philosophy about why books are bad and why we should burn them. So he's definitely the main antagonist of the book as well as the film. But he's pretty big character in the book. And then we have Faber, who's he sort of represents the person who wishes he could change the world, or maybe just kind of dreams of a better world, but doesn't necessarily do anything. He's kind of just hiding, keeping to himself until Montag shows up and sort of prompts him to act. But even when he does act, he's in the shadows. He's not really taking a lot of personal risk. So that kind of represents the person who maybe is on the fence about the whole revolution thing. And then Clarice represents the person who's more actively going against the grain, who's questioning the world, who's just loving her life, which is opposite from everybody else, especially Millie. She is the person who prompts Montag in the beginning to actually start thinking about these themes.
Okay, so Ray Bradbury, he describes a lot of futuristic elements and like technological advances in this world that he has created. He paints like vivid depictions of these TV screens that take up whole walls, earpieces that allow long distance communication. He describes this mechanical hound who's this dog who can sniff out people for miles, and he kills them with poisonous needles. And then they have machines that pump out people's stomach when they overdose. And those are just some of like these futuristic tools that Ray Bradbury kind of creates in the novel. And these tools that he creates and these descriptions, they serve as commentary and critique into modern society. And he kind of warns us about the dangers of letting technology get too advanced. And he warns us that it can numb us to real life. And so Millie has this addiction to her TV, and she's constantly reliant on technology, which I think Bradbury warns us against. And he shows us that technology can be a tool that government uses to numb the people of our society, and also to oppress them and to control what kind of media they consume and what kind of information they're getting. So he really makes a huge comment on the danger of technology and questions if it really should continue to advance.
And so one of the big distinctions between the book and the film is kind of the focus. We've discussed in our group a lot about how the film, as movies usually do, goes from more of the suspense away to kind of grip the viewer. And a big way that it's done is focusing on Montag's journey rather than the the other characters and the roles that they play. For example, in the book, as it's been discussed, Faber ends up being a huge influence in Montag's life, but he's not in the film, and so he's not able to have that kind of impact. And so Clarice kind of does the best that she can in order to fill in those gaps, but it's really mainly focused on Montag's journey, kind of sort of a hero's journey look on it.
Yeah, and the biggest theme between not only in the book, but also that Truffaut brings into the film is this idea that free thought is important, free opinions, and the freedom to learn and to engage with differences in opinion and belief. Books are the primary symbol, obviously, that Bradbury uses in the book to show this difference in opinion. These are literal objects of people's thoughts. And this lady, for example, here in the picture, she has tons of books in her house. So it sort of represents the idea that some people have just all of these different opinions and thoughts and beliefs going on in their mind that they can think about and they can understand and learn from. And that sort of debate against the freedom of thought and the oppression of thought comes about between Montag and Beatty, Beatty being that main antagonist character who has his thoughts about philosophy and why these differences in opinion are so bad. He talks about how it makes people unhappy because, for example, Jesus Christ and Buddha disagreed on what the true meaning of life is. And therefore, with that disagreement, it breeds unhappiness. So neither of these thoughts can exist. So he argues that we should just get rid of all evidence of opinions, differing opinions. And if we all just think the same and basically just do nothing, just interact with our TVs, that we'll all actually be happy. But in the book and in the film, it's shown pretty clearly that the people who are believing in this system of government aren't truly happy. And the people who are oppressed by the government might actually have something deeper. And that's what Montag really wants. That's why he's going after the books in the first place. One thing that really stood out in the book as well as the movie is this idea that Millie has sort of committed suicide or attempted it with overdosing on sleeping pills. And the stomach pumper guys come in and they just act like it's a regular day. They have multiple of these that they do every night. So it kind of shows that this culture and society is just covering up their deep depression by claiming that they're happy, just sticking their noses in their technology.
So for our group, we focused a lot on the differences between the 1966 adaptation of the novel and the novel itself. And so some of the biggest differences and key characteristics of the film. First of all, Clarice is kept alive throughout the whole entire film. In the book, she dies, and the decision to keep her alive allows for her and Montag's relationship to grow a lot more than we see in the novel. They become closer, and they also like get kind of this romantic tension that wasn't there in the novel due to Clarice not having as big of an influence on Montag because she dies kind of relatively early on. And Clarice's character kind of stays the same across the film and the book. She's very curious and challenges social norms in both works. Another difference between the two is that Faber is not in the movie. And so because of this choice, Montag kind of loses the mentor figure that he has in the novel. And this allows Montag to become more independent and confident. He's presented more alone than he was in the book. And so he is now like the sole protagonist of the story because he doesn't have Faber whispering in his ear like he does in the novel. The last kind of main difference creatively is that the mechanical hound was not in the movie. And the hound in the novel represents like this oppressive and violent government that endangers people. And so without the hound, this metaphor is lost. And along with it, the argument of Ray Bradbury is like warning against oppressive government. So the choice to keep the mechanical hound out of the movie is maybe have been due to like technological or financial reasons, but without it, it does lose an aspect of argument that Ray Bradbury kind of definitely valued, I feel like, in the novel. So for our source, we found a scholarly article titled "The Consequences of Passivity, Reevaluating Truffaut's Fahrenheit 451." And so Tom Long wrote this article, and he's an American author and scholar. And throughout the article, he kind of critiques the director's creative choices. And one of the biggest issues that he has with the difference between the movie and the book is that he claims that in the movie, the characters are too cold and impersonal, and we don't get to know them the way that we get to know them in the novel. And he also discusses Ray Bradbury's overall satisfaction with the film. Ray Bradbury did enjoy the film, and he expressed that to multiple reporters, and he's quoted in this article. The one thing that he does express disappointment over is the absence of the hound, because he feels like it is a huge metaphor and it supports his argument a lot. So without it, that is definitely something that the film was lacking. In the end, Wallen argues that the coldness of the film is fitting for the contact discussed in the novel, even though that there was kind of an impersonal and coolness to the director's filming style. It definitely fits the content that's discussed. It's very heavy, content-based, very serious.
So with the similarities and differences of both the book and the film, we can still see how it is, these themes are still very relevant today. Paige had mentioned, which, I didn't know that, there are books that are banned from certain schools, ironically, Fahrenheit 451 being one of them. We see this constant issue of not thinking when people are being entertained, just kind of being glued to the screen, similar to Mildred, or in the movie, her name's changed to Linda, and just not really thinking about anybody else. And with that, sort of an addiction, it being a huge problem and creating many gaps within families and therefore society. We see in Montag's journey this need to stand up for what's morally right, even if it's against the law, which we've discussed many times in the class, especially with the civil rights movement, just doing what's right for right's sake and the blessings that flow from it. And of course, how people should be free to think. It's what makes us human, what makes us us, and to be able to share those thoughts with others and to communicate, which we know at the ending of Fahrenheit 451, Montag's finally able to do that, to find people that, are memorizing other ideas and thoughts in order to communicate and just prosper together.
Yeah, so that's that. I, for one, liked the movie. I think Francois Truffaut is a really skilled filmmaker, and even though he changed some things from Bradbury's novel, I think it's still a strong piece of art in and of itself. But obviously, the book is the truly important piece of work here, and it was fun to dissect and compare the two.